Beginnings of teacher education. There's my little gasp choke. Remember, previous requirements, you had to be a Christian. You were going to teach the Bible mainly. Had to have a knowledge of the subject taught. It would help if you knew your Bible. Ability to keep order, although not written. Probably the quickest thing to get you to lose your job back in those days was inability to keep order. It's probably the biggest thing that'll get you to lose your job today as well. Willingness to take the job. It was not a high-paying thing. It was not a high-prestige thing. If you were desperate enough, you might be willing to take the job. There was little in the way of training. Remember the Jesuits who did teach class in how to teach? Remember the Christian Brothers did have the practice of student teaching? At this time, you might be able to take a teacher institute or a short summer workshop. Teacher institutes were offered in the breaks. Summer workshops, as the name implies. But that's about all the official training there was. So you had to be a Christian, you had to know your Bible, you had to be able to keep order, and you had to be willing to take the job. There was little stress on methodologies at this time. The how-to manage a class, how to teach a lesson, how to get a point across. The path to normal schools wasn't a normal school yet. 1814, actually 1821 is usually listed as the official opening. In New York, a lady by the name of Emma Willard created Troy Seminary, in which she taught young ladies how to teach school. There were private normal schools established in and around Boston around 1823. A fellow by the name of Samuel Hall ran an academy for beginning teachers, 1823 in the state of Vermont. Samuel Hall also wrote what's considered to be the first book on teaching, called Lectures to Schoolmasters of Teaching, notice the of, in 1833. Public normal schools begin to appear in Massachusetts and New York following 1837. By 1875, they were established across the United States. So, beginning as Troy Seminary, private normal schools, we'll get back to those in a few minutes. Samuel Hall's Academy in Vermont. Public normal schools begin in Massachusetts and New York. Massachusetts was first in 1837. And then finally, we had them established across the United States. Path and beyond. The first permanent chair of pedagogy was instituted at Iowa in 1873, Wisconsin 1879, Indiana and Cornell both came along in 1886. And New York City's Teachers College becomes part of Columbia University in 1894. Those are 1892. Those are the big ones. And into a period of about, actually 4 separate years that we're going to consider as banner years. 1825 was a banner year in education. A number of things happened in that year. Number one, DeWitt Clinton, who was the governor of New York, gave a speech in that year asking, where are our teachers going to come from? As we create more and more schools and more kids go to them, who's going to work in them? And how do you prepare the best ones? To that end, a group of pamphlets were published. A fellow by the name of Walter Johnson, who some of you males will identify as an old-time pitcher for the Washington Senators. Not him, but the name's the same, Walter Johnson. Thomas Gallaudet, which many of you will recognize as Gallaudet School for the Deaf. He is the gentleman who established that institution. He's the gentleman that that institution is named for. He also wrote a pamphlet on producing teachers. And two were written by a gentleman who bears the name of one of our presidents, although this guy was a James, whereas our president was a Jimmy. James Carter published two pamphlets. So we got four pamphlets coming out in that year. We've got a speech by Governor Clinton of New York, and Carter, who was a Harvard graduate and had taught school, wound up writing for the newspaper and wrote a regular column devoted to education. So a number of newspaper columns were also written by Carter, all promoting education. 1828 is considered a banner year, not for just teacher education, but a couple of other things happened in that time. We will hearken back, and I'll remind you of the Yale Report of 1828. It was a classic statement in defense of the traditional curriculum by a heavyweight, the president of Yale, and it defended the classics in light of training the mind, which we've talked about. The classics give the best training, therefore, when you go to college, you ought to study the classics. Case closed. This was supported by the pious and by the privileged. Another thing happened in 1828, and we've also talked about this: the election of Andrew Jackson as president. Andrew Jackson was not of the elite folks who had been president thus far. Andrew Jackson was a poor man, a military hero who ascended to the presidency. John Quincy Adams John Quincy Adams was the president who was defeated by Jackson, said many bad things about him, in essence almost calling him an illiterate in refusing to attend the inauguration. Anyway, this was anti-establishment. This heralded change. Hence, 1828 is a banner year. Moving on to 1837 as a banner year. That was the year the Massachusetts State Board of Education got off the ground. That's the year Horace Mann was appointed secretary. It also was the year that the first public normal school was opened in Lexington, Massachusetts. A gentleman by the name of Cyrus Pierce was named headmaster. Again, hopping into the future, 1861 as a banner year. In that year, Edward Sheldon was a professor at Oswego Normal School in New York, introduced Pestalozzian. Notice carefully I put a T before the two Z's like in pizza. Pestalozzian concepts and methods at Oswego Normal School. Sheldon was also superintendent of schools, so he had like a stranglehold on the district. We'll talk about Pestalozzi a little later on, just move on now. Along with Pestalozzian methods came something called the object lesson. In the object lesson, the teacher would come in and the kids would sit around and the teacher would hold up an object. Might be something one of the kids had given to her, might be something that he or she found on the way to the school, and they would have a lesson on that object. As you might guess, nature study, or what we would call science today, was a biggie, was probably the object of the object in the object lesson. Okay, we're easing on into the gathering twilight here. Let me go into this. This is one of our meanwhile back at the ranch moments. A little something tacky for you, perhaps. The Lone Ranger, disguised as a cat litter scoop, was picking up little bits of information.